Welcome to this video. What we're going to do now is we're going to go over some camera options. I'm going to talk about specifically which cameras are going to benefit you, especially if you don't have one at the moment, for vlogging. And then I'm also going to give you some good options for if you're looking for strictly cinematography. So the main differences between some of these cameras are going to be budget cameras, more expensive cameras, and then in between that it's going to be whether or not these cameras are going to be good for vlogging or not. So let's get right into it. I've narrowed it down as much as possible. Granted, these aren't the only options. So if I were picking up these cameras today, this is exactly what I would be picking up. So let's cut to our screen here. And as you can see, we're going to kick things off with the Canon EOS M50. This is going to be a relatively legit camera. Couple of key features that I like about it. Number one, I like the price point. So this camera, as you can see, we're going to be using Amazon.ca and .com. I'll tell you an estimate as to how much they cost. So this camera is $745 Canadian. So if you were to convert that to USD, it would be even cheaper. So this is going to be a camera that comes with a lens, and a 15 to 45 will give you a pretty good range. I would argue that it would be similar to a 24 to 70 on a bigger size sensor. So as you can see here, I'm not sure if there's even a clip, but we can see that this is an APS-C size sensor, which is going to be a good sensor. One of the benefits of using a sensor like this is that it's going to be a little bit bigger than a Micro Four Thirds, so it's going to give you a little more depth. And at this price point to get a lens, there's a lot of good things happening. Number one, it looks like you have the 4K option. So you can shoot at 4K, 24p, and also HD at 120p. So that's going to give you really good slow motion. This is going to be beyond 60 frames a second, which is just stunning and beautiful. Again, when you're shooting in those modes, whether it's 24 or 120, make sure that your shutter speed is nice and high as well. So for that price, I mean, you're getting so much going on. The reviews are stunning. I know several YouTubers that use this camera, and they've had nothing to say but good things. Let's look at the other key features. The lens is great. I believe the autofocus is pretty good as well. So again, improved AF, so that's going to be your autofocus. Eye detection, so it'll be able to, detect you as you're filming. It also has 5-axis image stabilization. So when you're filming, you're going to be able to get a nice smooth shot. A 5-axis image stabilization, the IS, that's going to be the image stabilization. It's going to give you smooth shots. So you're not going to have that shaky amateur look. Again, you have the flip out screen, which is amazing at this price point. So when you're vlogging, this is great. This is basically an all around amazing camera. So if we go to our screen only, you can see, how much you can do with this. Again, you could film yourself like this gentleman is doing, but you just have so much going on in a little camera. You're going to be able to get a decent depth of field. You're going to be able to shoot 4K all around, bang for buck. I love this camera. I've used one in the past. I find that my camera right now is a little bit better. But in terms of ease of use, if you were just starting out, this would be an incredible option. And at this price point, you can't go wrong. This is a camera that I would recommend to anybody. And when the next one comes out, and if it gets even better, man, this is one killer camera. This is a camera I wish I had when I was first starting out. So again, it's got so many great things. There aren't really any cons. The only con to this camera is that the sensor isn't very large. And I don't think the battery life is too good. But if you do look on the side, you do have an input for a mic. You cannot do phantom audio, so you cannot use XLR microphones on this unless you adapt it and rig it a certain way. But for the most part, you can add a nice shotgun mic, or you could, do wireless audio recording. Again, if you're recording audio into your DSLR, into your camera, I suggest that you bring the preamps down and you leverage the microphones audio. So make sure you're your audio levels are as low as possible and bring up your mic's audio. That'll give you the cleanest sound possible. So anyways, all around, this is just an awesome camera. The only thing it doesn't have is for live streams. I do not believe you can send in an HDMI output. But anyways, this is a great camera all around. For under $1,000, it comes with the lens, and it's just, you know, around $500 if you're American. So again, our Canadian dollar is a little bit weaker. It's not worth as much. So don't feel ashamed if you only have $500 to $1,000. You're getting a great camera. The next option is going to be the G9. Now there is the GH5, which is great. Yeah, the G85, which I own, and the GH5 is really good. But now with technology, the latest and greatest additions, the Panasonic G9 is an incredible camera. So let's talk about the con to this camera. The only con to this camera I could think of is the sensor size is small. But with that, you're also going to be able to adapt a lot of different lenses. For example, the camera I'm shooting with right now, the Blackmagic Pocket 4K. That camera has a micro four thirds size sensor. Same one as this. It's very versatile. The only downside is that the sensor is very small. So when you put a lens in front of it, you're going to be cropping in 2 times approximately. So that's the only downside. Again, you have the flip out screen. You can shoot 4K. You can get slow motion with this camera. Just so many great features. I love the menu system on this camera. I prefer it over a lot of other ones. Again, just a small compact camera. Battery life's pretty good on these as well. If you were to get a camera, if you are going to do live streaming and using this camera, this would be a great option. Here you can see there's an HDMI type A, so you can monitor up to 422 8-bit. That's a relatively clean image. And again, you've got dual SD card slots. So unlike the M50, the basic upgrades is going to be the fact that you can do better live streaming. And you're also going to have that backup when you're recording video or taking photos with the camera. You can also monitor your sound, unlike the M50. So again, it's just going to be a couple of these small features, but they're going to go a long way. It's going to help you out quite a bit. As you can see here, we have autofocus control mode. I think the Canon does better in terms of autofocus. If you're going for autofocus, if you don't want to worry about focus, I would go with the Canon personally. And what else we got here? Yeah, I've always liked the battery life of these cameras. Again, I use a similar camera, my Panasonic G85, which is probably a cheaper option. That camera's great all around, but this would be even better. It's just newer. Again, you have a beautiful viewfinder as well. I've always been a fan of these. They've been phenomenal in my opinion. And then what else could I say about this camera that I like? Yeah, there's just a lot of good going on. I prefer this over the M50 if you can afford it. Again, it's a beautiful camera. They're built well. It'll probably feel a little more expensive than the M50. But again, just to compare them, I mean, you're talking about 1,200 USD versus about 500 USD or 600 USD if you were to do the currency exchange. So again, I love this camera. If you get a kit lens, you're talking about $1,000 budget versus $2,000. But for the $2,000, if you're gonna take this serious, especially with this lens, these 12 to 60, that's gonna be approximately a 24 to 120. You're gonna be able to get your close-ups and your wide shots at the same time. So again, this is a great option. If I could upgrade to this in terms of my G85, if I could buy this instead and upgrade, I would. Again, just a great option. And then you can get a standard lens kit, so it looks like a premium lens kit. So yeah, about $1,300 USD. You could find yourself a nice little kit like this. What other features should we talk about? Dynamic range is going to be very similar, but again, up to 180 frames per second and 4K 60. So if you're a fan of 60p, you might want to get this. So it comes down to your budget. This is just going to have more features than the M50. Comes down to your budget. So my third option, which is going to be a little bit different, If you're not vlogging as much, I love the camera that we're using right now. We were able to hook it up to the computer, and we could, use OBS with it. This is going to be the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, and there's also the Pocket 6K, which is going to be a bigger sensor. So what do I like about this camera? I like everything about this camera. The only thing that it doesn't have, but ironically enough, is also kind of an interesting point. The back of this camera, it's amazing. You have a big 5-inch touchscreen monitor, and I really love this camera. I love what Blackmagic's doing. They seem to be doing great with the software updates. So in a sense, you could get better features in the camera at a later date. So sometimes Blackmagic on their website, you'll be able to download their software update, and then the camera will be able to do more. For example, when I first got this camera, you were not able to record anamorphic. Now you can. This camera, compared to the Panasonic, I would say that compared to the Panasonic, this camera would just give you more of a cinematic quality, especially equipped with the speed booster. If you were to get something like a Viltrox, you would be able to get more light in there and achieve basically more shallow depth of field. So you'd be utilizing more of the lens, which would look something like this with the speed booster, which is just really cool in my opinion that you can do that in today's days. Again, micro four thirds size sensor. This shoots just raw. You can literally shoot to an SSD. You can just shoot much more information. And again, one of the better features about this camera is that you have that 5-inch touchscreen. I wish they had a photo here, but you could look it up. Yeah, anyways, the touchscreen's great. The menu system's great. The app is great. You can start and stop your camera from an app. And then you also have 4K, and you're talking 4K raw if you want. So you really have to compress it to fit things on a cheaper SD card. And then again, 13 stops with dynamic range. If you don't know, dynamic range is going to give you a lot of details in your midtones, highlights, and shadows of the image. So you're going to be able to get more of a cinematic image. You're going to have more information, and your blacks will be black, your whites will be white, pure white. You're just going to have beautiful cinematic images. Again, if you're operating by yourself, and if you're not filming yourself, this is a great option. But if you are doing a lot of run and gun stuff, this might be a better option, right? And then again, if you are brand new to video production or filmmaking, just stick with the simple stuff. Because, for example, if you were to use a Canon M50, this camera, if you use this for about a year or two, then when you go to use this camera, you're going to be able to maximize on its features and abilities. So that's going to be the 3 options so far. And then again, at a super high budget, the Canon EOS C200, trying to keep things under $6,000. I know this is a bigger jump, but if you're looking for just an all-around beast of a camera, something more professional, if you're looking for the best for YouTube, I mean, I wouldn't get into a Red camera, then you're just getting into filmmaking and movie making, but this is just the best camera. If you're not concerned about your budget, this is going to be a very incredible option. Cameras like this, you can basically do whatever you want with. You'll have, XLR input, similar to the Blackmagic. The Blackmagic, I would say, can film almost a similar quality, except this will have more depth of field, a little more dynamic range, and just an overall better image. But you get what you pay for. So those are going to be the options of cameras. If you're going to go with the camera like this, you're going to be able to use bigger batteries. You're going to be able to film all day. It's more of a video camera all-in-one package. You're not going to need anything else once you get a camera like this. But again, if you're vlogging, you may not want to use that. If you're vlogging, I would want to tone it down to something like this. If you're strictly vlogging, I would get something like this. Or if you can afford it, something about twice the price of this would be a Sony A7S III, which would be an incredible option. So I hope you look up these cameras, look into the specifics. Again, if you're starting out, I love the Canon M50. If you are wanting to step things up and have more features and to be able to do more with your camera, this is a great option, the Lumix G9. And then if you know that you just want the best image quality at a cheap price, I would definitely go with the Blackmagic Pocket 4K and then the C200. And I have used all of these cameras. In fact, I've owned every single one of these cameras except for this one. I've only been able to rent this camera for a couple shoots because, you know, it's $6,000. But just to give you an example, I hope you enjoy this. If you're looking for something cheaper, go on your phone. Just start using your cell phone. There's nothing wrong with using a cell phone. It's going to be a great option. But again, if you're just starting out, there's nothing wrong with using the Canon M50. People love it. I know a lot of YouTubers, a lot of fellow videographers, they're using the M50, and if I had one, I would use one as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we will see you in the next one.